people, whoever who are listening to this video, I believe we're already on the right path. Yeah. And, there will be struggles when we learn a language, when we are bored, when we lose our motivation. And that's fine. That's part of the journey. Yeah. Just try your best to enjoy it. And yeah. We're doing the right thing. And I don't think, how do I say? I don't see why we wouldn't be able to speak the language fluently one day. Be patient. Yeah. Adjust your expectation. It's going to take years if we do it a little bit every day. And that's why. Find a way to enjoy it.
Hi, Suqing.
Hello, Alvaro.
Well, nice to meet you. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Likewise. Very happy to be here.
Cool. And well, as usual, before asking you about your background, obviously we're going to talk about everything language learning, language acquisition, right? About your background, about the transition between input and output. So that's the menu for today, right? And like I said, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background, like your language background, anything you think is relevant?
Okay. So actually, when I was in uni, my major was Japanese. So I studied 4 years of Japanese. Of course, it was the traditional way. And for that reason, I think my Japanese is still pretty broken. I guess all Chinese people are learning English. So I studied English ever since I was a middle school student. And so basically before I started teaching Chinese, I studied English and Japanese in a traditional way. And I started teaching Chinese the traditional way for 2 years. And I decided to quit because I was like, that was boring. Yeah. I was repeating myself using the textbooks. So one day I heard the term comprehensible input and I got really interested. And the more I dig in, the more interested I got. And now I'm just like religiously love it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So now I'm learning French and Spanish using this method. Yeah. Nice. That's about it.
Good, cool background. Because you're from, like, where are you from exactly in China? Like, what city?
I'm from the south of China, okay. A province across Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really close. I'm really close to Taiwan.
So Mandarin is the language there?
Yes, correct. But we do have dialects too.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but I think it's a pretty common experience. I mean, when it comes to your Japanese and English, right? Like, it was exactly the same thing for me in high school and so on, that I took English like every year, but I could pass any grammar exam, but I just couldn't speak the language. Right?
Yeah.
It is so common for everyone. Like, English or for English speakers with Spanish or whatever, right? And then you decided to move to Australia, right?
So when I quit my job as a Chinese teacher, I moved to Australia. I did other jobs. And I think it was for I'm not sure now, maybe a year or something. And then I started teaching again using comprehensible input. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it was a long story. It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. What I mean, what I want to get to is, when you moved to Australia, was your English good enough already, or?
Good question. I think so. I think I didn't have any difficulty communicating with people. I did have a little bit of, difficulty understanding, like, really difficult accent. Yeah. Or like talking on the phone. It wasn't easy.
Because at that point, you've already been in contact with comprehensible input, right? So you used it yourself, or not?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, when I came to Australia, I didn't know anything about comprehensible.
Okay, so you were already in Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
because
right.
I was thinking that you were talking about your experience with Japanese and English. All right,
Mm.
but sure. And how's your French and Spanish going? How's that going? Because I guess you're doing fully comprehensive input with it, right?
Well, when I started learning Spanish, not really. I actually tried PRICELESS, and I actually like it because it felt interactive. So I was like, that's pretty impressive as an audio course, you know. But it was on and off. I never studied very seriously, and I felt my Spanish was very, very broken. The way I learned it, you know, using PRICELESS textbook, it was very, very broken. Only until I started learning Spanish with TPIS, with Blaine Ray, I started to feel, okay, now my Spanish is bearable. Yeah, but before that, my Spanish was awful.
Okay. And same with French, or did you just with that
French?
it was all comprehensive input?
Yes, French, all comprehensible input, and I just started, and I'm enjoying it so much. So fun.
Cool. And yeah, I was thinking that obviously, so you just started with French, right? So I was trying to compare your experience with French and Spanish, but you just started with French, excuse me. Because what I wanted to get to is, you know, a comparison between studying the language, just comprehensible input like French, and then your Spanish that you can sort of compare. But probably, I don't know, in 6 months or a year from now, you can, you know, when you've been, excuse me, learning French for longer, you can compare. Like, you know, is comprehensible input better than, just comprehensible input better than the mix that you did with Spanish, right?
See, I because I love comprehensible input, I wouldn't try all kind of methods. You know, I believe this is a good method. So I wouldn't be like, you know, there are a lot of different methods out there. I better try everything. No, I don't want to do that. My time is precious. Yeah. So I never studied any grammar when I'm learning French. Never try to memorize any words. Just from the learning experience itself, I just felt it's much more enjoyable. Yeah, never felt any pain. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, obviously, now that you know about it, yeah, you know, you're not going back, obviously.
Oh, well, actually, you know what? Some people would go back.
Okay.
Yeah, I had students went back to traditional way of teaching.
Okay. And why do you think that is?
You see, comprehensible input, it feels very difficult to measure the progress.
Right.
Yeah. I can't say, hey, you know what? In this term, we're going to learn 500 new words. We're going to learn 1,000 new words. Comprehensible input is not working that way. And also because I don't really care about HSK system, so the exam. So some people will be like, okay, so if I don't know how much I've learned and I'm not taking the exam, I don't know my Chinese level. I'm feeling insecure. So I need to pass HSK 6. And then my Chinese will be perfect. And I'll be like, okay, if that's the case, good luck. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of people I know that passed an English test, in this case, that don't know how to use the language is pretty high. And that works for any language, because it has nothing to do with actual communication. Except for that little speaking part, maybe, you know. It's just you can prepare for those exams and act and not speak the language. Actually, they're two different things, right? Anyway, and when it comes to your, we'll obviously I'll leave links to your channel and Lazy Chinese, right? I like the name. But I wanted to ask you about your teaching. Like, as from your teaching experience, do you see the difference in your students between, when you started out teaching the traditional way and now? Like in their, obviously how much they're learning, but in their attitude towards learning, towards Chinese, towards Mandarin. Overall, like can you see the difference in them?
Yes. Okay, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of wonderful students, and I always remember one of my Australian students. She told me that learning Chinese is her biggest hobby now. And she said she has been learning Chinese for 10 years, but it was very difficult. And then until, she discovered comprehensible input. Yeah. So every time when she was in a class, she always made everyone laugh. Yeah, because the energy is just incredible. Because people care. People want to talk about things. We only discuss things we genuinely care. Like if we have a textbook, we don't really care about the conversation there. Yeah. But if we pick something, normally it's something we're all interested and we care. And when you talk about something you care, you just can't hide your, energy. Yeah. So, yeah. And I also feel like my students are able to speak Chinese the more natural way. Yeah, sometimes they just surprise you with the very natural pattern that I probably never taught them, but they just pick it up from the videos because I give them my videos as homework. Yeah. So they're able to impress me with their natural sentences a lot of the times.
Well, that's nice homework. I was just thinking about my old school days. That they didn't give us homework like that.
Yeah. So I do both things, right? I create content, and then the content is the homework for my students. Yes. Yeah. And then when they come to me, we talk about the content that I created. And I guess because it's the content that I created, I have a bonding with the content. And because it's the content that they picked to watch, so it means they are interested too. Right. So we are talking about the things both of us are interested. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Plus, I'm thinking that it's their teacher, so they're even more excited because they're watching videos. But it's not just someone they don't know; it's their teacher, right?
Yeah. Indeed, they get to ask me the behind scenes of the content. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm really interested in to get to know your perspective about this part, both from the teacher perspective and for a language student yourself with French, Spanish, and Japanese and English first. Because so recently I've been talking about this part, about what I mentioned in the intro, which is how to make the transition from input to output, right? Because I believe in comprehensible input the most myself as well. And that's what I do with my students. That's what I do myself as I'm learning other languages, which I love. But I've come to realize recently that there comes a point after, many classes or many videos, a lot of time. Like it takes a lot of time, obviously, but there comes a point in which you can understand a lot, but your speaking is not there yet, right? Which is fine. It's part of the process. We know that. But I feel like there's something that can be done at that point. There's some sort of output practice that can be done to help you sort of bridge that gap. You know what I mean? So is there...
Yeah, of course.
Is there anything you're doing as a teacher to help your students or as a language learner yourself to sort of bridge that gap, like some activity, or what's your take on it?
For me, my students wouldn't have that issue because if they would come to me, that means they are definitely doing the output. It won't be me talking the whole time, right? They're definitely interacting with me. Yeah. So I normally don't have students who have that kind of issue where they can understand a lot and they can't talk. Yeah. Because I normally focus on teaching beginners, lower intermediate student, or like intermediate students. And if someone is advanced level, I normally won't teach them because I don't focus on that level.
Yeah, because they don't need it at that point. Okay, right.
I guess there are certain things they want to improve, but then that's very specific.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, this one student need it. And, you know, I haven't really prepared that kind of materials. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but so my point is, I forgot. I lost track.
I know what you're saying. Okay, so for the people who don't have tutors, okay, let's say they're just doing the listening. Yeah, they're just doing the listening by themselves. And because for me now, I'm learning French and Spanish. I don't really have lessons. Very occasionally, I have some lessons, but normally I don't. And I'm not too worried because I did try to talk to one of the like online Spanish teacher, and I feel no issue outputting. Yeah, I feel okay speaking. Yeah, so I don't really know the people who's saying that they can understand the law but they can't speak well. I don't really know.
Okay.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah. I don't mean that you can't speak at all, but that there's like the gap between your ability to understand and your output is just too large. Like, for example, in my case, I've been talking about it recently, so I'm learning German now. And I've been doing it for 3 years. Fully comprehensible input, like online videos, stories, things like that. And I can understand so much. Like I can understand native podcasts, for example, which is like, maybe movies are more difficult than that. But what I mean is I can understand native content. And I was in Germany this summer and I could understand people. But when it comes to communicating, I mean, obviously it was my first experience actually using the language or trying to use the language. I was able to communicate, to say things, because I think just input starts the process of output as well, right? But I feel like, and I feel it with my Polish as well, living in Poland, that the gap is just too large, right? Like I understand almost everything, but my speaking, I can communicate, but not the way I'd like to. What I mean, like sometimes I feel like the sentences I'm creating are too simple. Or if we're talking about deeper topics, I'm struggling a bit. Things like that. I don't mean that you can't communicate at all, but the reason I'm asking is because I used to believe that just with input, you'll get there, right? And again, don't get me wrong, like I said before, comprehensible input to me is the most important thing to learn any language. Like you can't do it without it. It's the most important thing to get the language in your head. But then recently I'm talking more about this part because I feel like, I don't know, some output practice could be beneficial.
Of course.
Right? Like
definitely.
Like, I don't know, activities like talking to yourself or things like that. Or so that's more of my question. Like, for example, in your case with French or Spanish, with French you just started, right? But with Spanish, that you've been doing it for longer, when you felt like you were ready to start communicating, what did you do? Did you talk to a tutor, like you said, or did you look for language partners, or did you talk to yourself? Is there anything you did to practice output?
Yeah. I definitely do. When I feel, for instance, if I'm listening to a video for a couple of times and I'm getting familiar with the content, I feel sometimes I can't help but started, talking. because I'm familiar with what they're saying and I know what they're going to say next. So sometimes I just help them say it. Yeah.
Right.
So, or sometimes if I'm really interested in a topic, I might do shadowing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't just listen, I do talk. Yeah. I do talk to myself.
Right. And shadowing, I'm also curious about that part because, so how do you do it? Like, do you talk exactly at the same time or do you wait for them to finish the sentence and then say it? And, pause the video, or how do you do it?
Depends. If it's something that I'm very certain, I might just say it at the same time. But if it's something I feel the sentence pattern is a little bit complicated, then I might pause it and I might say it just to get my tongue, used to it. Yeah.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter. I don't think there's one method that we all have to use. I think, people can sort of like have fun with it and then decide what's the best for them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I'm asking because I'm super interested in this part because I feel like it's the missing piece in some way, because I've done it with multiple languages. I do it with my students. Like, I can get myself or them to a level in which they can understand pretty much anything, which is amazing. Like, just get the language in the head. But to be honest, the part I still struggle a little bit with, I don't know if struggle is the right word, but I'm not 100% sure yet on how to tackle it myself or for my students, is this part, like making the transition between just input and output, right? And output, like I said, like feeling confident about communicating in the language, like I feel with English. Like I know I still make mistakes when speaking English, but that I'm totally fine with it because I feel perfectly comfortable in any situation, in any type of talk or whatever the topic. Well, unless it's a topic I have no idea about, of course, but that I wouldn't do it in Spanish either, right? But what I mean is that transition between just input to get the language in your head and getting to a point in which you feel comfortable speaking. Even though, like I said, you're going to keep making mistakes like we all do, right? But yeah, so I feel like with languages like Polish and German, I'm getting there, but that's the part I'm focusing more on recently for myself and my students, because that's, like I said, sort of the missing piece. Because speaking of shadowing, I tried it with German for a while, and it's interesting because what you said about your tongue, like practicing, it was funny because it was like the first time I was actually saying things out loud in German. And at the beginning, I had so much trouble with certain sounds. Like there's sounds in German.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, I know.
Right? So like immediately I realized that, this is helpful in the pronunciation part, right? My only concern, not concern, but when it comes to shadowing, for example, I'm concerned that, it's going to help you with pronunciation, but you're not really creating language yourself, if that makes sense. You're just repeating things, you know what I mean? So
yeah, of course.
Repeating is not the same as creating or building the sentences yourself, right? So is it something you do for pronunciation purposes alone, and then something else for like talking to yourself or things of that nature?
Okay, that's a very good question. When we speak a second language, we don't want to create a sentence. I know when we, use the language in real life, we of course, we're going to talk about our real life. We're not going to talk about a video. But I think shadowing is wonderful because you're not creating the language. There's no way you could make mistakes. You could pronounce things wrongly, but you're only mimicking the native speakers. Yeah, the native speakers could make mistakes too, but
well.
very, it's not very likely they constantly make mistakes unless you chose the wrong materials. Yeah, so I think it's wonderful because you're not creating. And I feel sometimes if you know enough correct ways of saying certain things, and, one day you're going to talk to a random friends, all those things, all those pieces will come back together. Yeah. So I think it's great. I think it's great that you are only saying the correct sentences.
Right. Yeah, good point. I never thought about it. Like, obviously, yeah, when you're mimicking or you're shadowing, you're saying things the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, my concern is that you're just repeating things like a parrot, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But because when you're gonna need to actually communicate, right? That's what I'm trying to understand. When later when you're talking to a friend, like you said, in a way you're gonna have to put words together. Like ideally, you don't need to think about it; it comes out natural, right? So is that your point?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like in my mind, shadowing and talking to yourself or summarizing a podcast you just listen to are different things. Because in this second idea, you have to create the sentences, even if you're talking about a topic that you just listened to like 10 minutes ago, you're still the one creating them as opposed to just repeating them. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but I don't know if I agree. I feel like, so if you just say, if my students just watch the video as homework, right, and we talk about the video, I would expect my students to use the sentence that they heard in the video. And I actually encourage them to do shadowing. And sometimes they seem to, say the sentences in a very, very natural way because we're talking about that topic. Okay, sometimes we study something, but we don't necessarily talk about the same topic, right? And that's where you're like, well, I don't know how to say certain things. Well, that's fine. I guess that's just a gap between where you are at and where you want to talk. So yeah, adjust the expectation. You're not there yet, and that's fine. Yeah, and I think when you have accumulated enough of the language, I think when you're trying to output, at first you might struggle a little bit, but I think it shouldn't be an issue. Yeah. I don't know, everyone works different. Everyone's brain works differently, and the way they consume the materials could be different. So when I look at French, for instance, I don't translate, right? I accept whatever it is. Yeah, I no longer translate because it is what it is. I can't change it. I can't be like, why don't they say it in that way? It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, well, if I spend my energy on doing that, if I'm spending my energy on breaking down every bit, then I'm wasting my energy. And I'm not thinking in French. Yeah, so whatever whatever the native speaker feed in me, I'll just accept it and I don't translate. Yeah. So if I have enough, it's like a library. If I have enough, then I feel when I try to say something more personal, I will still make mistakes, but I think it should be okay. I don't know. My French is really basic, so I'm not very sure.
Yeah. But I think I know what you mean. And we actually, I'm thinking that we might be talking about the same thing. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Like in your example with your students, if they've watched your video and then used those sentences in the class, that could be called shadowing. But to me, that's already a different thing. So that's more what I meant, meaning that if you watch a video and a day later in class, you repeat a sentence or you say it because, you remember it or you recall it from the video, that already is different to me. Like that to me is, I think, is more beneficial because you're practicing recall. But when you're shadowing in the moment, I mean, it depends on how you do it, of course, and what your purpose is. But many times you can shadow and don't have any idea what they're talking about, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you see,
it's different. Like what you mentioned,
Yeah.
I think in that sense, the student is actually quote unquote creating the sentence, even though they're repeating it. I mean, they're recalling it from input and using it, right? But they're recalling it themselves, as opposed to just repeating it in the moment. That was my point.
Okay, so you're saying some people, when they're doing the shadowing, they probably don't know what they're doing. They just like shadowing like a robot, right? And they actually didn't internalize the language. Yeah, but if students are able to like use it in a class by, after shadowing or by watching the videos many times, we assume that it's already in their head. It's retained. Yeah. So I guess, you see, that's the thing. It doesn't happen to all of the students. Some people, if I encourage them to do shadowing, they manage to say it in a natural way, but it doesn't happen to all of the people. So that probably because everyone, when they're doing the shadowing, everyone do it a bit differently. Perhaps because some people just mimicking. Some people, they actually do pay attention to the details. Yeah. I don't know which one's better. I do pay attention to the details. I can ask my students. I want to know when they're doing the shadowing, what are they doing? But I do notice some of my students, if they do the shadowing, they're able to say things nicely. And people who are not doing shadowing, they are more likely to translate from English.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it definitely helps. But the way they do it, I don't know. I can't sit next to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't tell what's going on in their brain. So definitely there will be differences between people, but I think it helps if you do it the right way.
Right. Yeah, like I said, like any type of shadowing, I think is going to help you with pronunciation. Like what I said with German, like I was actually surprised myself that, well, first at the beginning, because from all the input, I was starting to build sentences in my head. And in my head, they sounded perfect, right? But then I was, I spoke German out loud for the first time. I was like, whoa, what was that? But then as I kept doing it, my pronunciation got better. So whatever sort of shadowing you do, it's gonna help you in that way. But my point was like, for example, if you're watching your students are watching one of your videos, and 5 minutes later, they talk to themselves out loud to sort of summarize the video, they're gonna use expressions that you use in the video, but they're recalling the information and creating sentences themselves, even if they're just quote unquote mimicking what they heard. However, my concern again is if you shadow like right away, I don't know if it's actually possible to process the language. Like you're just repeating things.
I think.
So I don't know if you're paying attention to meaning. That's also my thing, right?
Okay.
Because it's just an example. If you summarize that video afterwards, you're paying attention to meaning, right? Because you understood whatever was said. So you're, even if you're using sentences that the teacher used, you're the one creating them. That's my,
Okay.
But again, I haven't done it enough to. This is just a feeling, like my like intuition. It's not that. Yeah.
Everyone is different when it comes to how sensitive they are to new languages. Some people seem to be easier to embrace the new pattern, the new grammar, the new way of saying certain things. Maybe they're very different from their native language, but people seem to be very different in terms of that. So I guess, people are different. And if they are doing the same thing as you, then could still be slower. Yeah. Or if they're trying harder, if you're watching videos an hour a day and they're watching like 3, 4, 5 hours a day, they could still be slower. And it's fine. I really think it's fine. As long as they're doing the right thing, I think people can adjust their expectation. You know, if they're not as faster as other people, I think it's fine. Everyone has their people have the things they're good at. Not everyone needs to be very good at language, I assume.
Yeah, we'll have our own pace, of course. You know.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard, you know, because when we compare with other people, and if we're like, oh, how long have you been learning Chinese? And if they have been learning Chinese for 5 years, and I have been learning Chinese for 5 years, and they're advanced students, and I'm only intermediate, and I'm definitely going to feel why, you know? Yeah, I guess it's something worth reminding that it's okay. And when someone is better than you, you can ask them how they did it.
Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. And I really think if you're doing the right thing, there won't be too much of difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the difference is probably you're doing different things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or if you sort of like double click on both scenarios, even though both people have been learning Chinese for 5 years, the one who's ahead is listening to Chinese for 2 hours a day as opposed to your 20 minutes, for example. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you look closely at, you know, at what
Definitely.
everyone's saying, everyone's doing, you're going to see why, right? For the most part.
Yeah. Ask them why.
Yeah, exactly. But again, when it comes to this topic, for example, like the reason why I want to have this conversation is to talk to more people about them, to try to come up with with the more efficient activities if possible. But obviously, you know, I encourage everyone to try whatever they think is going to help them, like the shadowing thing. Like I said, only with just that pronunciation part is going to help you tremendously. I felt that with German, like I said.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
You know, the reason we're talking about it is because, yeah, we can share our experiences, the experiences of our students, to help people understand, okay, so this makes more sense, or this is going to help me even more. That's just my goal with the conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. And any language do you have in mind for the future, or you just focusing on Spanish and French now?
Good question. I'm not... Actually, learning language is not like, oh, I want to be a polyglot. It's really not my reason. You know, I have tons of hobbies, and I want to learn Spanish and French simply because I'm really interested in the culture. So if I don't find any other culture interest me in the future, then I stop. I do other things. There are many ways of, you know, exploring my life. But maybe Portuguese, maybe Russian. Yeah, maybe, let's see. What else? I'm sure there will be other languages that I will be interested in the future, but I just have no idea. And I don't have a number goal. You know, people keep asking me, like, how many languages are you going to learn? And I'm like, I don't really care about how many language I'm going to learn. I'm caring what kind of language that I'm going to learn. Yeah, which language?
Yeah, I think there's something we learn with time. Maybe like it doesn't only happen with languages. It happens with I don't know, with people traveling to countries, for example. Like I've been to these many countries, and over time you realize that it's just like an ego game, so it doesn't make any sense, right?
Sometimes it's a business. Sometimes I think it's a business, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool when you do a video, say, I can speak 10 languages.
That part. Yeah, I know what you mean. But it's still, I know what you mean. But for the most...
It's cool. It's just not something I care. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And I'm interested, we'll use Russian because it's different. Because with Portuguese, if you started learning Portuguese after you already can speak Spanish, that'd be different.
Yeah.
But with Russian, I'm curious. So imagine you started learning Russian from scratch, right? How would you start?
Same thing. Definitely comprehensible input. Oh, maybe also Italian. Italian, actually, I've been interested in learning it because it's a very dramatic language. That's why I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful, and it's related to music as well. And I just feel like there are so many incredible music in Russia or Italy, and a lot of teachers are from there too. So even though I'm not learning these two languages, I do heard a lot of the musical terms in Italian. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm especially curious about Russian as the example because again, Italian, after you can already communicate in Spanish, I mean, like it happened to me as a native Spanish speaker. When I started learning Italian from scratch, I could understand cartoons right away. So that's how I started, actually.
Yeah.
It was comprehensible input for me, right?
Yeah.
And with Russian, which I also started with, but I'm focusing on German now. Russian will be my next, probably. So I started with comprehensible input video, like YouTube channels, things like that, right? Because I feel like with the languages that are not close to one of the languages you already speak, like, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, between them, you need someone to create content specifically designed for complete beginners, right?
Definitely.
Like in my case, it was a channel called Comprehensible Russian. I don't know if you know it, but really good.
Yeah, I do.
So, and what if it's a language that there's not enough content yet?
That's a very good question.
Would you stop and wait, or?
I feel I wouldn't choose to learn a very small language.
Right.
Yeah, because I still want something that I spend years on learning to be very useful. Yeah, so I probably wouldn't choose a very small language. And if it's a bigger language, I assume there will be some content out there. I mean, for instance, there are not many comprehensible English. I haven't seen like channels focus on doing that. Yeah. So if I'm not learning any small languages, I guess it wouldn't be an issue. If it's big enough, I guess people will be creating the content. Yeah. And if I can't find interesting content, yeah, I will probably find a cartoon, and I'll try to break down every single word for the first video, and hoping the next video it will be easier. That's what I did with French. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess you could always find a tutor or a teacher that teaches with comprehensible input as well. But but it's true. I mean, I do know a couple of English channels, but it's true that because English is everywhere, there's many people creating content about it. True.
Yes, I know. There's no like very good comprehensible input English videos for complete beginners. Right. So they just assume everyone can speak some English, and they just watch American TV shows.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
True. All right. And any final message for language learners out there, Suqing?
Well, I guess whoever who are listening to this video, I believe we're already on the right path. Yeah. And, there will be struggles when we learn a language, when we are bored, when we lose our motivation. And that's fine. That's part of the journey. Yeah. Just try your best to enjoy it. And we're doing the right thing. And I don't think, how do I say? I don't see why we wouldn't be able to speak the language fluently one day.
I love that. Yeah, but it does take time. Yeah.
Be patient. Yeah. Adjust your expectation. It's gonna take years if we do it a little bit every day. And that's why find a way to enjoy it.
Right. Yeah, and I always tell people that mm, it's going to take years, of course. But then once, like my example with German, when I got started, I watched for 5-10 minutes every day. Now I can watch 2-3 hours of German a day.
Exactly.
So that's because, I can understand way more than I used to. So I get access to more interesting resources.
Yeah.
I can handle it for longer.
Yeah.
But, at the beginning, just 10 minutes feels like a lot. Like your brain's going to explode, right?
Yeah, definitely. Now, if I watch English speaking shows, I feel like I'm wasting my time. I should have studied other languages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well.
Yeah, but and I actually stopped watching Chinese dramas years ago. Ever since I started watching English dramas, I completely stopped watching Chinese ones. Yeah, so now I feel guilty when I watch English speaking ones. Yeah. It doesn't feel like language learning anymore.
Which is good, by the way. Because it's actually helping you, but it doesn't feel like it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because my point is that the first months, you're probably not going to be listening to the most interesting content in the world for you, right? Yeah. As an adult.
Yeah.
Like when I started with cartoons and in Italian, I wouldn't watch cartoons in Spanish now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I know it's temporary, right? Especially with Italian, because it's so similar to Spanish that very quickly I was able to get to a point in which I could understand the commentaries and then, like more complex and interesting resources. So even if it feels like a little bit of a push at the beginning, my point is it's going to take years, but fairly quickly you're going to get to a point in which you can get exposed to the language for longer every day and enjoy more interesting resources, if that makes sense.
Correct.
There's always that point at the beginning in which you're, one more cartoon, okay.
Yeah, but I always feel very happy about myself when I manage to listen to some French every day. Like when I decided, okay, I need to listen to some French today, it's very difficult to make that decision, and then to open my phone and start watching. But once I finish the video, I feel so good about myself.
Right.
So it is something, against our lazy nature, especially me. I'm very lazy. But I do feel happy. Yeah, indeed. I am a lazy Chinese. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I need to find a way where I can enjoy. And I know after doing my job, I feel great about myself. So that's why I keep doing it.
Okay.
It's addictive in a good way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Because when you're watching an English drama, you don't need, how to put it into words, you don't need the willpower to watch it because it's so interesting for you, right?
Yeah.
But with French, because you're starting out, what I just said, is you're not watching the most compelling content yet because you don't have the ability to understand it, right?
Yeah.
Yet, that's the right word.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you so much.
No worries.
It was a pleasure to have you on. And like I said, I'll leave links to your Lazy Chinese channel.
Follow me.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's I've seen even videos for complete beginners, which I really enjoyed. And I'd watched a couple of Mandarin videos before, just so the basics. I can understand the basics already.
Oh.
Like my name is and things like that. But yesterday I was watching one of your videos and it's great because you made it comprehensible as a complete.
Which one?
Like I said, it was
which one?
The complete beginner series, the first one. Like you started ni hao, 我喜欢 Suqing. I just started like, I'm Chinese, not Japanese. My name is Suqing, not Siquan. It was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that one, yeah. But I mean, like, I remember watching a couple of Mandarin videos a couple of years ago. So I did remember a couple of things, but it was totally comprehensible. So it was great.
Good.
And yeah, so like I said, thank you. Have a good day, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah. I'll see you soon. Thank you for inviting me. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for you. And if you want to know more about language learning, language acquisition, like, what's the best way to learn a language, ideas for language learning, the best resources at different levels, here you can find the whole playlist with all the interviews I've done so far with different researchers, teachers, polyglots, and so on. And finally, right here, you smash this guy right in the face to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.